Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, Identity and Influence Edition. My name is Mo, and I'll be sitting in the host chair today, as well as giving a little bit of my perspective. We are in studio talking about leadership lessons with Dr. Lem Usita. Dr. Lem, what's up, man?
Yes, sir. Good seeing you, man. Always a good time talking about leadership. I enjoy these episodes, and so thanks for having me on.
Yeah, these are a lot of fun, and I'm glad that you have haters on the internet now that are telling you that you don't know what you're talking about. We must be doing something right.
Hey, that's fine by me.
Bring it on, right? I love it.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. So, tell us about this leadership lesson. Just give me the quick 30-second elevator speech, and then I'll dive into some of the topics I wanted to discuss regarding this article.
Yeah, so I got to tell you the background story to this. I was at a conference recently, and at this conference, a typical conference, it's that you sit at tables and they make you sit down at the table with whoever happens to be there. And then they have you answer questions or discuss whatever the topic is. So this idea of social media and new media came up, and there are three perspectives on the table. There was an older guy that basically didn't understand what social media was. There was a younger guy that was overwhelmed by his social media use, and so he just ignored it altogether. And then there was me, who didn't have any problem with it, and I saw the value in it. So I was the only one that's like, "Nah, man, we need to be on this." And so that's what this leadership lesson comes out of.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think that people are going to enjoy this discussion that we have today. So let's get right into it. I wanted to talk about the three leadership postures. You described the first posture as the dismisser, right?
Yep.
Did I get that
Yep.
right? The dismisser?
Yep.
Which is the leader who sees something like social media or AI and immediately writes it off.
Yeah.
Why do leaders sometimes mistake dismissal for wisdom?
Yeah, this guy was going all off on it, and they dismiss it. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
they dismiss it because they don't understand it. The other
Mhm.
guy at the table kept saying, "Who cares what I ate for breakfast?" And he had incorrectly and narrowly dismissed it as trivial and so no value in it.
Yeah.
There's lots of reasons why people dismiss it, but basically at the fundamental level, they just don't understand it, and they don't understand the impact and the potential that it has. And so they just dismiss it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, actually. Why does everybody default to that? Like, ever since Facebook, remember when Facebook used to be able to put your status, I think, like
Yeah.
right now I am eating
Yeah.
breakfast or whatever it is. And I think people they always default to who cares what I ate for lunch? Who cares what I ate for breakfast? Who cares what I'm wearing today? Why is that the default when people want to dismiss it?
Back to what I was saying, they don't understand it, and then they don't take the time to understand it. It's the place where people are at. That at the end of the day, like, there are millions of people on these apps. There are millions of people checking it out. Like, look at every business. They are on it. Why? Because people are on it, and they're feeding them ads and
Yeah.
they're feeding them videos, and they know the impact that it has, so they're on there. And what this guy did, what he just like, yeah, he just made it about breakfast and about something that it wasn't. And so he put the whole thing into this little category, and so
Right.
he'll never lead in this area. But he just didn't take the time to understand it.
Yeah, one of the things that I notice when I walk leaders through the DISC assessment is that personality a lot of times shapes how quickly we dismiss things. So we'll say,
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll default to our personality, like, oh, that's I'm a
Yeah.
high I, so I don't like statistics, or oh, I'm an S personality, so I'm not about telling people what to do. Right. And if you don't know what
Yeah.
I'm saying, then you need to take the DISC assessment and it'll
Yeah.
blow your mind. But back to
Yeah.
what I was saying. So for instance, like the high C or conscientious personality, those kind of people, they want enough data before they can engage. Whereas the high D personalities, they sometimes dismiss things that don't look strategically useful to them right away. So the challenge is that leadership often requires curiosity before judgment, right? So
Yeah.
you and I both like Patrick Lencioni, and I got to tell you, Dr. Lem, I got to come clean here. I at first did not like Patrick Lencioni's books because he gives a lot of stories. And I don't want stories.
Yeah.
I want facts.
Yeah.
I want like a DC personality does. I just give me the facts. And then one of my mentors said, Mo, just give Patrick Lencioni's writings, a little bit of, give him a chance.
Yeah.
Because just because he does things and writes the way that you don't, maybe that's something in a way that you can learn. And let me tell you,
Yeah.
like all the mentors, the men and women in my life, of course it was the right thing. I started reading his books. I love his stories now.
Yeah.
But that's my long way of getting to this. In his book, The Advantage, he argues that great leaders resist the temptation to oversimplify new systems. And the
Yeah.
reason that they do this is because early dismissal can blind a leader to influence patterns that are going to be productive for them as a leader. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they don't wanna put in the work, like, one of the things we keep saying is leadership is hard. And when you don't put in the work, I mean, at the end of the day, it's an excuse, right? You're just making an excuse to not put in the work. And these are all tools that help us in our influence. These are all tools that help us in our leadership. And when we dismiss it so quickly, like we miss out on the opportunity that's available to us. And at the end of the, yeah, people are just they don't want to do the work. They want to keep it simple.
Yeah, I think it comes down to people just need to work harder and stop being lazy. So
That's
you
true.
you got me. I love it. So you point out that when leaders dismiss new environments, a lot of times they evaluate them based on their lowest value expression
Yeah.
instead of their highest potential. So take me through that. Why is that such a dangerous leadership miscalculation?
When all you can see is the lowest value expression, and in this particular example, the solar guy was saying like, "Why do people care about my breakfast?" When that's all you see is you end up missing out on the potential that's latent and just needs to be tapped into. The dismisser will never have influence in this area because he doesn't understand it, and so he'll miss out on the impact that he can have. And so that miscalculation and the thing that you brought up, secondarily to that is they don't want to put in the work. And so
Yeah.
man, like it's so easy for us to just take a look at it and dismiss it with the lowest value expression. It's so much more than just telling people what breakfast, what kind of breakfast you had. And here's the deal, you don't have to talk about your breakfast, right? You talk about leadership principles, you talk about like the changes that you want to make, you talk about what you're learning about identity or what you're learning about people have to be breakfast. And this guy just kinda misses out because he made it about breakfast.
Yeah. So this actually reminds me of Clayton Christensen's work, The Innovator's Dilemma,
Yeah,
in which he says disruptive systems usually don't look impressive at first. So they look
yeah,
small, they look trivial, they're even annoying. But what leaders
yeah,
miss is that the system isn't about the surface behavior, it's about the shift in access and participation. And so leaders who only see the noise, like this guy
yeah,
and his whole breakfast
yeah,
obsession, they miss the structural transformation that's actually happening underneath. And
yeah,
that's the important work that you're talking about.
yeah, and you get left behind,
Absolutely.
just because you're being lazy. At the end of the day, you're being lazy.
Yeah, I've got a couple of mentors via audio and reading lately talking about AI and saying, hey, AI, if you don't embrace it, it's going
Yeah,
to leave you behind. And so
yeah,
I'm actually starting, I've been doing these different challenges with AI and trying to get better at it because I'm not the expert, but I'm not going to dismiss it because I don't understand it. I'm going to
yeah,
lean into it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
so historically, we've seen leaders dismiss television, the internet, social media, and of course, like I just mentioned, AI.
yeah.
So, what patterns should leaders recognize from history so that they don't accidentally give in to or miss influence in that same way for the next big thing? In this case, AI, but who knows what's next?
Yeah, it's all of these things, and it like you said, it'll be something else in the future, but you need to understand, first of all, that it's just a tool. The dismisser will demonize social media and deem it worthless and trivial, but millions of people are on there, and you miss out on the influence that you can have because you've dismissed the tool. It's just a tool, and you miss out on the leadership and the info and that the interaction with people because you've dismissed it. Similar to
Yeah.
you, man, like AI, like actually, this week I was like the way that I use AI now, like it pointed out something huge for me. Like we talk about leadership quite a bit and we talk about all of this stuff, like taking a look at your patterns and how you communicate. And it kind of
Yep.
helped me to understand like I need to step up my game in the way that I communicate. I need to sound like an executive and not make excuses and not talk about the past so much. And this is what I've done before. But to really help people see like my systems thinking, to really come across as a strategist, to really come across as somebody that can transform your organization. And it was helping me pick the right words and
Yeah.
use the right categories in order to do that. And so it's really helping me point out some things in the way that I'm communicating. And yeah, it was really eye-opening and really good experience for me with AI this week.
Yeah. And like Marshall McLuhan famously
Yeah.
said, the medium is the message. So what he meant by that is that new communication environments change how people think. It changes how we interact with one another. So leaders, if you dismiss the medium, you're
Yeah.
not just rejecting the tool, you are stepping out of a space where you could actually influence culture. And this is where culture is being shaped right now. So again, since it was the internet 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago now, and now it's AI. I'm not saying don't miss this as in like you need to make money on this. What I'm saying is from a leadership perspective, you cannot just dismiss this. And so that's why, and Dr. Lynn, this is what I got from the article, is that you cannot dismiss these things because it's going to make your leadership obsolete.
Yep. You're gonna get left behind.
Going to get left behind. Yeah. So let's talk about avoidance and self-leadership. You argue that avoidance is often less about technology and more about self-leadership. So take me through that. What do you mean?
Yeah, so if the dismisser was the old guy, the avoider happened to be the young guy who basically
Mhm.
wasn't able to control his use and his consumption of social media. So in his mind, I'm going to avoid it altogether. And the issue of self-leadership revolves around the idea that he lacked the discipline or the control to use social media, to still use it. And I actually commend this kid, for his take on it. But once again, you miss out on the influence because it controls you and you don't control it. And so for a season, this kid is avoiding it. And maybe this kid will avoid it for forever. But social media is kind of unavoidable. You see it everywhere. So many people are on it. But just know that this perspective also misses out on the influence that you can have on social media because you're avoiding it. And the reason why you're avoiding it is because you can't control it. You don't have enough discipline.
Yeah. I mean, when I coach leaders, a lot of times I see this as a self-regulation issue rather than a technology issue. And
Yeah.
so if we want to use disc language, right? Some personalities thrive in the high stimulation environment, and others, they're going to find it exhausting.
Yeah.
So Cal Newport actually talks about this in Digital Minimalism. Incredible. Check it out. But what he says is that the challenge isn't the platform, it's whether we've developed intentional habits that keep us in control of our attention. And I mean
Yeah,
that's
that's it.
that's what it's about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That is exactly it. 100%.
Yeah. So in this lesson, you talk about, an emotional, dysregulation, behavioral compulsion. How do these internal leadership challenges shape the way that people interact with modern platforms, the ones we're talking about?
Yeah. The fundamental issue has to do with control. At the end of the day, since you lack control, whatever captures your attention, you're a slave to. And since you lack control, you can't regulate your emotions. Social media regulates you. And since you lack control, you compulsively indulge. It's all about control. The avoider has no control. So in order to control it, they avoid it completely.
Mm.
And that was this kid's perspective. So yeah, he couldn't control it. And so he just avoided it.
Yeah. And I mean, leaders who haven't built emotional discipline, they can end up reacting constantly instead of leading
Yeah.
intentionally. And when we get stuck
Yeah.
in reacting, you're on a spiral, in a spiral, a downward spiral, which is
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about Daniel Goleman's research on emotional intelligence. His research shows that self-regulation is one of the most critical competencies of effective leadership. So, man, gosh, I love that. So, a
Yeah.
little bit more on avoidance. One more question. So,
Yeah.
avoidance can sometimes protect your personality, your personal stability, but you say it limits the influence of a leader. So,
Yeah.
man, I don't want to have limited influence.
Yeah.
How should I have leaders think about balancing personal boundaries while still remaining present where the influence is actually happening?
Yeah, so the avoider teaches us that if you can control it, if you are disciplined, then you can jump into it and still have your influence. But but the key to all of this is to be involved in the development of yourself. Have the discipline and control built into your social media use so that you can have influence. Since there's so many people consuming content and no one is consuming yours because you're not on it, right? And so, yeah, develop your discipline, develop your control, and control social media so that it doesn't control you. Interestingly enough, as I was thinking through this, neither of these guys will see this content because they're not on social media, right? They'll
Yeah.
never see that I'm writing about this and using them as examples of how you're missing out on the tool because one's dismissed it and the other one avoided it.
Yeah. Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and if leaders remove themselves entirely from spaces where the influence is happening, they're for sure going to reduce their leadership footprint. And
Yeah.
as John Maxwell famously says, one of my favorite quotes, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so I want to be in the spaces where I can influence, like we don't want to do podcasting, video podcasting, just to be out there. We want to actually influence the space and give some good stuff. And so
Yeah.
bottom line, do not be an avoider. Stay away from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Have
So
some discipline, have some
yeah,
control.
have discipline, have control, take control of what you can control, which is yourself. So be in those spaces, leaders. So let's talk about stewardship and missional presence.
Yep.
You say that the steward leader asks a very fundamental different question, not do I like this environment, but instead asks the question, where are the people I'm called to influence? So based on what we just talked about, why is the real leadership question, hey, where are the people
Yeah.
that I'm supposed to influence?
So when you take a moment to think about where people are and how they find information, millions of people look up stuff on YouTube. I look up stuff on YouTube, right? And I remember when we first started this, right? And I was like, there's no way. Like, how are we going to have enough content? What do we have to say? And look at us now, man. I remember I told you about these 50 leadership lessons, and you're like, yeah, let's record one every day. And I was like, man, like, who's going to care about any of that? But we did it. And I got over my fear of it, and I got over what anyone else would think about stuff. Hey, we're just sharing stuff that we're learning, and people look this stuff up, right? And so we've been plugging away at this stuff weekly for, over a year now. And we do it because it matters. We do it because people are watching it and people are looking for leaders to help them. Just take a look at how many folks look at our stuff. And it doesn't have to be huge. And that's not even the point. The point is that we're sharing it and that we're influencing the people that are watching it. So for those of you watching this, thank you for watching this. Thank you
Yeah.
for letting us in and sharing just the things that we're learning about leadership with you.
Yeah, we're really grateful for our YouTube audience. And, what this reminds me of when you say that, who's going to want to see this? And I was like,
Yeah.
man, you've got to get these 50 leadership lessons out there.
Yeah.
I mean, we're done with those. Those are gone.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody should go back and listen to every single one of them. But
Yeah.
my takeaway from what you just said from a leadership lens is this: leadership isn't about preference. It's not about what Dr. Lim wants.
Right.
It's about
Right.
responsibility.
Yep.
Right. And so Andy Stanley has a great quote where he says, leaders move towards the tension that others avoid.
Yep.
And that's really what you were doing in that instance, is saying, gosh, I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to move towards that tension. And it's helped so many people. So leaders, remember that stewardship means showing up where the influence is needed. And
Yeah.
if the environment isn't your favorite, that's okay. It might
Yeah.
never be your favorite, but if you're a leader
Right.
and you want to have influence, you want to go to those spaces. So where are
Yeah.
those spaces in your life?
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. Yeah. So you also point out that throughout history, leadership influence has always followed population migration, right? From Roman roads to television to now digital platforms.
Yeah.
What does that teach us about where leaders need to show up today?
Well, years ago, I did this seminar that I called "Would Jesus Tweet?" Right? That tells you how long ago the
What's the
seminar
answer?
was. He absolutely would have. You know what I mean? And this is why. When I went to Israel, and I know you've spent a bunch of time in Israel, I learned so much about what Herod did. He built roads, and he just made Israel like the center of the world. And so if you were going to India and you were, coming from Rome, like you needed to go through Israel in order to resupply, like all the roads just it was just the crossroads, right? And then I started to see how like Jesus did ministry at all the crossroads cities, right? Capernaum was that, Jerusalem was that. And he always told his stories in the city and shared the gospel wherever travelers would resupply. And he went where people were at. Social media is where millions of people are at. He would have totally used the tools to get his message out. And he did. That's exactly what he did when he was here on earth. But he didn't get swallowed up by it. He would spend enough time away, and after every huge encounter, he'd go be by himself. He would go up into the mountain or go out into the desert. He lived a disciplined life privately so that he could have that world impact publicly. So figure out your personality or your style, and then figure out what you have to do in order to stay charged and ready, so that when you have to be in the crossroads and when you have to be public, you have the energy to do that, but then also know yourself well enough that you need to get away in order to recharge.
Yeah, and I bet you that when Jesus was feeding the 5,000 for breakfast, he would have tweeted, "Just hanging out here with 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish."
Yep.
You know, and people are like, "Well, who cares?" I'm like, dude, you better care, because he just fed 5,000 people with that stuff. When you say that, it reminds me, historian Neil Ferguson, one of my favorites, he writes in The Square and the Tower that power shifts towards the networks where information flows fastest.
Yeah.
So leaders who understand
Yeah.
network dynamics,
Yeah.
they can shape the conversations early. And we want to
Yeah.
be early shapers of the new
Yeah.
trends. Leaders who ignore them, though, are going to end up trying to catch up, and they're going to try to, there's going to be systems that have already been defined and made, and they're going to be behind the times. And we never want to be like that in leadership roles.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Last question. You talk about the difference between fear-based leadership and agency-based leadership. You also talk about how anchored identity allows leaders to engage environments without being controlled by them. Love that. Why is identity stability the real foundation of influence?
Yeah. We always say here on this podcast that you lead out of who you are. And when you can do that, you don't waste energy. When you can do that, you don't have to pretend to be somebody that you're not. You can just be yourself and lead out of that. But also knowing yourself, and like I was saying earlier, knowing what energizes you allows you to set up your life in such a way that you can have that public persona and then do what you need to do to charge back up, so that you can be healthy and that you can be disciplined, that you can be in control, and then you can engage people as your true self. So whether in social media or face to face, knowing who you are helps you lead out of who you are. And one of the things that we keep coming back to is the disc. And if you don't know your disc style, please let us know. Like, we'll help you figure out your disc style. And when you know what your disc style is, then you can lead out of who you are and be fully who you are in any situation. And you don't have to pretend, you don't have to fake it till you make it. You could just be you and lead out of who you are.
Yeah, there's an article in the Harvard Business Review. It's called Act Like a Leader, Think Like a Leader. And in that, Ibarra talks about leaders expand their influence by stepping out into new environments. But at the same time, they maintain a stable sense of who they are. It's exactly what you're talking about. Knowing your identity, leading from who you are, but leading in new spaces to who your people are. Because when identity is secure, platforms become channels for contribution instead of sources of validation. And leaders, you do not want to live in the need for validation. You need to understand that what you contribute is because of who you are as a leader, and that's why people follow you, not needing the validation of, I'm a good leader, people really like me. We need to be focused on our people. So any last thoughts, Doc?
Man, dude, I've really loved your insights, and I really love like the stuff that you're saying, man. And at the end of the day, like, don't avoid leadership. Don't dismiss the tool. Like, know yourself well enough that you can jump into all this and show up as your true, authentic, and real self. That's what we want to help you do. That's what we hope you do in your leadership. And again, if you need that tool to help you figure it out, let us know. Contact us here, leave a comment. We'd love to help you figure out your disc.
Yeah. Leaders, remember that dismissal forfeits influence, hence limits influence, but stewardship multiplies influence.
Yes,
and we want you to be
really
multipliers. We want you to be leaders of leaders. And so if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure that you visit us at rtclc.com. Sign up for the monthly newsletter. It's where we give you all the good stuff. like this episode, subscribe to the channel, share it with somebody that needs to hear it. Till next time, thanks a lot, Doc.
Yes, sir. Thanks.